Hi there, everyone. Thanks for tuning into my news and weather and entertainment channel. It's meteorologist Anthony J here. I'm also part of America's Weather streaming channel, and you can check us out there. I'll be posting some updates there as this now monster hurricane is forming near Mexico and is headed toward Florida, unfortunately. But let me give you some of the details of what's going on here. And I'm going to start showing you where the storm is with a couple of different perspectives here. This is where the hurricane is now. It's located off the coast of northern Mexico. The eye of the storm is northwest of Merida. It's not really affecting Merida too bad right now, but there are hurricane warnings along the Mexican coast. That city is a little bit inland. But anyway, the worst of the storm is over the Gulf of Mexico right now, and the direction that it is headed is unfortunately in the direction of Florida. So I'm just going to tell folks what I know at this point and what is still has to be ironed out. Right now, we had a 1.3 hurricanes going on in the Atlantic this weekend. That's the first time that's ever happened in the month of October. And right now, this is Hurricane Milton right here. And as I mouse over it, and you can just go on the National Weather Service website, because this is what I'm showing right now. And you see that's the latest information. I tell you, this storm has escalated faster than any hurricane I can remember. Yesterday, when I went to bed, this was a Category 1. It was 90 miles per hour, about that. And I checked this morning here, Pacific time, it was 155 miles per hour at about 8 o'clock Pacific time. And it's now 175. So these are conditions here that are so rare. But, we talked about and you heard about probably how bad the hurricane season was going to be. And indeed, that is what we're seeing. And we're seeing this is the second Category 5 of the hurricane season in the whole Atlantic basin, which includes the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico as well. This is there in plain English what the Hurricane Center is saying. Residents in Florida, and that includes you if you're watching me, thank you for tuning in, are urged to follow the advice of local officials, and that means evacuate if you have to evacuate. The good news is, and it's not all bad news with this storm, at least not yet. It's Monday, it's about 1 o'clock Pacific time, 4 o'clock Eastern time, that there's still time to evacuate, still time to get some supplies, and you probably had some from the last one. And the best thing, if I was down in Florida right now and I was told to evacuate, I would leave, and I would leave probably during the overnight. There is, of course, quite a bit of traffic. I'll show you some video of what's been happening as far as that goes. But the bottom line is this is a very serious storm. Now, here's the path expected to go in for the next couple days. Here it is now. And these pink means that you have a hurricane watch, and that includes much of the Florida coast, but not just the coast, even well inland. You can see the orange, that pink color goes all the way inland to places like Orlando, near Ocala. So this storm, if it follows the path similar to this, you might get winds, at least in gusts in around the Orlando metro area. So I'd imagine that Disney resorts probably will be closing. I'm not sure if they have, but they certainly will if the storm is going to be coming by there on Wednesday. The worst damage of this storm that was going to be on the coast, not around there. Here's the latest images of the hurricane. And I mentioned that I've never really have to go back, or you have to go back to the records to find a storm like this. I've never seen one strengthen like this in the Gulf of Mexico, this rapid, except maybe one that I can recall. That was Hurricane Rita. And that was in September of '05. But this hurricane here, you can see what makes this stand out on the satellite is it has a perfectly circular eye. So it has that kind of donut look. When the storms have that donut, when you look at that on the satellite picture, it's very intense because it's very perfectly shaped. That tells us there's no shear. There's almost nothing, if anything, inhibiting the storm at the current time. It has been a small in size storm, but it is also growing in size as well. So that's where the storm is right now. The particulars, again, on the storm is moving east at 9 miles per hour. It's near the Mexican coast, but not so close that it's likely to make landfall in Mexico. Now, as it moves by there tonight and tomorrow, perhaps it could weaken. I think it will weaken a little bit as it feels a little bit of the effects of the land there in Mexico that might interrupt some of the inflow coming into it. But it's only going to be temporary because it's going to move like this, east northeast or northeast towards Florida. But notice by 7 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow, it's still not there. So you shouldn't have any effects at all from the storm through that time. Then it's going to speed up a little bit, and then Wednesday's the day that it's going to make landfall. So now the Hurricane Center expects that this storm, this monster hurricane, is going to be in your backyard by Wednesday late morning, but really the worst of effects Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night. And by Thursday, it's offshore here. So by that time, well, they're going to be issuing hurricane advisories on the East Coast too. So, but it's really the western part of the peninsula that we're most concerned about, where we could see extreme damage in some cases. And then on Thursday, you'll get some wind and surge, say around maybe St. Augustine, likely for you, Jacksonville, down to Daytona, Cape Canaveral. Well, basically the scenarios with this storm, we're trying to think of what would be like a best case scenario to spare the most damage here. And that would be if this hurricane followed the bottom half of this cone. If it does that, it could slam into the Everglades. That would really be the best case scenario. That would mean maybe a little worse conditions farther south, say in the Keys and Miami, Palm Beach areas. Those areas right now, you stand to see the least effects of anybody in the peninsula. If it goes south, you'll get more, but the surge, which is the big killer of these storms, would hit mostly unpopulated areas. So we're going to pray and hope and pray that that happens somehow. Otherwise, if it follows more towards this part of the cone, then it's going to impact more of the communities that are farther north. So as of this moment, as of 4:07 p.m. on Monday afternoon, the Hurricane Center has the center of the cone, the center of the storm hitting Tampa Bay, basically a head-on hit. Over St. Petersburg and across Tampa Bay. It's not likely to shift a lot between now and Wednesday, but even a small shift would put the storm, if it goes farther south, it would be less of an effect for you in Tampa Bay. Quite a bit less, in fact, as far as surge. For the communities farther south, though, that would not be the case. So that's why folks in like Sarasota and Venice, around there, Cape Coral, Port Charlotte, and Fort Myers, that area of the coastline, you're just as much under the gun here. We hope that areas farther north, like Cedar Key and around the Big Bend, get less of it this time, as it's less likely to make a sharp turn and go up here. We're watching that, but that is the most likely scenario right now. So it's really Wednesday that this is going to be hitting. There's another look at the satellite. I'm going to pull up some other information here. This is a look at the forecast model tracks. And what this shows as of the latest update, in fact, this is hot off the press. These tracks, basically an average of the different models, it looks like they have it coming in still over or barely south of Tampa. In fact, looking at this, Tampa Bay is still in the middle of all the most likely tracks. Another perspective here that I'll show you. Let's see, is another, some more computer models. Here you can see another one here. This is from earlier, but again, the same deal. So this is really where the storm is going to head, and that hasn't really changed very much. As far as the intensity, like I mentioned, this storm has strengthened a lot quicker than anybody expected, already a Category 5, and that's where it is here. So this is the different models on a graph, and basically, they're showing it at Category 5 right now, 175 right now, miles per hour. This is time. So in 24 hours, it's still expected now to be a Category 5 tomorrow. And then as we go through time, it shows some weakening of the storm. This is 48 hours away, close to when it's on shore. Almost all of them have it at least a Category 4 still at that point. So the bottom line is that this is almost very likely to still be a major hurricane as it makes landfall. So right now it's 175. This is old, actually. Sorry about that. It's 175, like on here. 175. So it, it could go down, to 160, 150, 130, 120. But it's not going to make much difference because the storm is going to grow in size. There might be a little less damage exactly at the point of landfall than it would be, but otherwise, more of the coast is actually going to be impacted, and somewhere on the coast is going to see high storm surge. So we have to let you all know about that. Here's another perspective of the hurricane now. It's the same satellite, except it's just a visible satellite. It's real clouds, and the storm again has that donut eye. And if anything, I don't see any sign that it is weakening at all at this moment. A lot of times the hurricanes will get certain intensity, and the winds around the eye will actually allow it to weaken a little bit and collapse the eye, and then another eye forms. Right now, I don't see much evidence of that. It looks like it's still at least holding its own. It might even be getting stronger as I'm talking. It's already a strong Category 5. If we had a Category 6 scale, it'd be getting close to that. But in any event, this is where the storm is now. It's been moving east. It looks like it maybe is taking a little turn to the more northeast right now as it feels some of the effects of Mexico. There's been a lot of rain over Florida the last couple days. Not a lot of flooding rain, but there are flood watches there. I have some family members down there around Walt Disney World, and they're trying to come back home tomorrow before the storm hits. But we've been getting some rain. There's another weather disturbance here that has kicked up the wind a little bit. But the hurricane itself is down here. It's not affecting anybody in Florida at this time, and won't even through tomorrow, as I mentioned. So let me show you some other information. The hurricane models, these predict where, the intensity and everything else. And actually, this website I'm showing you has been having issues because there have been so many people logging in to the website. They were restricting some of the data, and the data here is coming in rather slow, actually. So what I might do, let me see. I was going to switch the source, but let me see. Let me try one more time. As you can see, that's going really slow. This is Tropical Tidbits. You can check them out. They're a great site. But I can also go to another source here. And why don't I do that? I'm going to switch sources and show you my Radar Omega program. This source here, I can show you the same information. Okay, so here is the path of the storm here. What I'm going to show you are some of the hurricane models, the forecasts here. One of the more reliable ones as it goes through time. Okay, so here is essentially where the hurricane is now. And I'm going to advance this to 36 hours out. This is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's the hurricane. And the models want to keep this as a Category 5 for a good amount of time. But you can see how it's not near Florida, even by 8 o'clock tomorrow. Now, as I fast forward to 8 a.m. on Thursday morning, October 9th, now the storm is starting to approach you. But still, if this holds, even by 8 o'clock Wednesday morning, there won't be a lot of effects on the coast yet, although the water's probably going to start rising around that time or just before that. But the main effects will come in later. So you see, this is where the model has it. I'll advance it to 54 hours. It's going to start moving more quickly towards the coast, too. So this will be a scenario where, Wednesday morning, if you're on the coast, probably won't notice much unless there's some rise in the water. You're not going to notice much as far as the changes in the weather conditions. And then the storm is just going to come in, and probably you'll see a very rapid deterioration. But this is at 2 p.m. 2 p.m. Wednesday. 2 p.m. Wednesday. I'll advance it 3 hours. And it's at 5 o'clock. So now you're probably getting tropical storm winds, I'd say, by mid to late afternoon here in this part of the coastline. Anywhere from near, this is Sanibel Island up to through Tampa Bay, Newport Richey area. But based on the timing right now, it appears as if the worst of the storm is going to arrive towards dark or just after. This is an image at 8 o'clock. So I'm going to just zoom in just a tad on here. and that is you're going to be get if this verifies, you'll be getting tropical storm winds, sustained winds, and hurricane force gusts by or a little before 8 o'clock on Wednesday. And you can see the wide area of the coast that's going to be affected, and the storm still looks well organized. So, like I mentioned, uh, unless we get some kind of shear in the atmosphere, something comes along to weaken this dramatically, and it has to be dramatic. There's no way that this storm cannot produce a very high surge somewhere along the coast, and also create wind damage. So right now this is 8 o'clock. By 11 o'clock Wednesday, I'll advance it. By that time, the eye of the storm should actually be about to cross the coast. There you see it there. This model has it just offshore, but you're getting very high surge. You're getting very intense winds on the coast during that time. So the timing of this looks similar to Helene, when Helene made landfall around, I think it was around midnight, give or take. And this is 2 a.m., Thursday morning, 2 a.m. The eye is, you could say, making landfall by then. And it's not in a position where we want it to be. As I mentioned, the best case scenario would be if this storm, if we send it down into the Everglades, that would really be the best scenario that we would have. But based on what we're seeing, that looks highly unlikely at this point. But for Tampa Bay, we're watching you especially carefully here. So with the eye offshore, that wind would be pushing that water up against the coastline. I haven't checked the tide times yet. That would also be critical. I'll update on that, because if it hits at high tide, it'll be considerably worse. If it hits at low tide, you will see a little bit less surge. So you definitely don't want it to hit at high tide. So this is about where this model has the storm, right off the coast of Clearwater, St. Petersburg. So there you are. If you're in these towns, these cities here, know that you are right now, that the path of the hurricane, which is outlined here, is going straight across Tampa Bay. So that is right now, I guess, almost you could say the most likely scenario, although not by far. It could go south. Even if it goes a little north, though, that's not going to be too helpful for you. So the bottom line is, again, this is a very intense hurricane. There's no need for anyone to panic at all, because I mentioned if we make the preparations and, we watch the storm unfold, it's extremely rare, in fact, that we see a true worst-case scenario with anything, with a natural disaster. But we always prepare for the worst, always, because, it can happen. Here's some stuff on X. This is Storm Chaser Josh Morganman, and you can check on what he's saying here. He's called this storm a spectacular specimen. It'll likely weaken before it reaches Florida, but it doesn't matter. It's still going to produce likely a dangerous record-breaking surge along the Florida coast. So, and he is one of the top storm chasers out there. Okay, he knows more about these than almost anybody, if anybody. Now, also, we have other people posting on here. A major hurricane might be the strongest Atlantic hurricane we have ever seen. Now, that's a big superlative. You can see the strongest hurricane in history in the Atlantic was Hurricane Wilma, 190 miles per hour. Now, of course, there's been all kinds of speculation on the internet about what's going on with some of the weather modification and whatnot, but we're not going into that here. Also, the National Weather Service Tampa, this is some of the information that they have put out. So read this carefully if you're there. Major Hurricane Milton update, Category 5. They say if the storm stays on its current track, like I mentioned, it would be the worst storm to impact Tampa area in over 100 years. That's definitely true. So please evacuate if told to do so. Complete all prep before tomorrow night, they say. So there's still time. So as I mentioned, if I were down there, if I had to evacuate, I'd probably choose the overnight to do that, because you're not going to have nearly as many people on the roads. You don't want to wait till tomorrow to evacuate, because you don't want to be stuck in your house. Actually, you know something? I'm verbalizing this, but let me show you let me just switch the source here. You can see this, what I'm talking about. Here's what I'm talking about here. A major hurricane update. This is from National Weather Service Tampa. Category 5. If it stays on its current track, the worst storm in history for the city. The city has been around since 1836. So this would easily be the worst hurricane in the history of Tampa, going back that far. And again, you have till tomorrow night to complete those preps. And here's some of what I was talking about before, how well developed this storm is now. And they're calling it could be the strongest Atlantic hurricane ever recorded. It's getting close. That's information that we need to know here. Now, let me show you here. Here's some of the evacuations going on the highways in Florida. This was I-75 just south of Ocala, Florida. Clear to see that thousands are taking evacuation orders seriously. Gas is scarce in some places. Be patient. We are here on the ground. That is for Weather Nation. I'm not sure if this person is with Weather Nation. Looks like, yeah, this is a reporter from Weather Nation reporting that. So, yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Here's something else here. The the Hurricane Center sends planes into storms to measure their intensity and get the other information. Here's something talking about how the recon observed flocks of birds trapped in the eye of the storm. Flocks of birds within the eye. What happens is birds that fly around when they get caught in the storm, they will all fly into the eye of the storm where it's come. They don't want to be obviously out in the storm itself, but they have to follow the eye in order to survive. And a lot of times, they do. It's pretty remarkable stuff. So this storm is much stronger than Hurricane Helene was. Hurricane Helene was a Category 4 hurricane. So obviously, the threat for extreme damage is there. So all these places along the Florida coast were mentioned here. If you're in any of these towns, I'm just looking on Google Maps. All the way up to near Cedar Key, which was hit so bad with the last one. But this is the whole area of the coastline. Clearwater down to St. Pete, Tampa, Bradenton, Siesta Key. We saw damage from that one. Damage there was pretty bad. Even Sarasota, which is over here, where you have a little bit of protection here from the Barren Islands, from the surge to some degree. But you could be looking at almost a direct hit from this. And down the coast here, these towns, if you're in any of these towns or know anyone there, they are very well directly in the path. This is Venice. Anyone near Venice? Going South Venice. And then when you come down here, you hit the areas near Fort Myers Beach and Minnesota Key. And Fort Myers is down here somewhere. So this entire area of the coastline, if you know anyone here, they are under the gun for the storm. And this is around, if I can zoom out a little bit here. Captiva is down here somewhere. Yeah, these are keys. These are all barrier islands out here. Here's Fort Myers way here. You've got some protection in Fort Myers itself, but even some of that water could, push in through these inlets and affect you in Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and Sanibel Island. Of course, you've got no protection. So that's why we hope that the storm is going to be farther away from you and down to Naples. But notice down here, Naples will be affected. Marco Island's over here. And then once you get farther south, there's practically nothing. That's why I said if we could send the hurricane here, where you have literally no people on the southwest tip of Florida, there's nobody here whatsoever. You go down here, there's a little town called Flamingo, and that is just about it. And then you got the Keys. The Keys will also see some surge as well. So Key West, all the way up to the Central Keys especially. Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach, this part of the coastline. Right now, looks like you guys will see the least effects, unless the storm shifts more to the south. Hurricane Wilma came through here years ago. They did produce a lot of wind damage. If the storm is farther south, it will do more like that. So you're not out of the woods here either, but you're not going to see the way it looks now, the full brunt of the storm. And then on Thursday, the storm moves off the coast. So this area of the coast up here, from Jacksonville, St. Augustine down to Cape Canaveral area, will have some storm surge as well, although it's not going to be like it is going to be in parts of the West Coast. So that's the latest update on the storm. And actually, let me pull up a couple other things while I have this here. Yeah, here's a look at some of the evacuations. I wanted to show this. South of Ocala, Florida. Evacuations are being taken seriously. Gas is scarce. But there is a look. I presume that's driving south. But you can see, you saw the traffic there of people, a lot of them evacuating. I'm sure you can see them. They're following the orders. They're getting out of harm's way. And there is still time to do that. So you may want to wait till overnight, early tomorrow morning. And beyond that, though, tomorrow is going to be a crazy day if we have a lot of people who haven't evacuated. And you can see it's all pretty much one way. So it would appear that everybody's going north, I would think, completely away from where the storm is expected to be, not toward the south, or they're coming from the coast. Wherever it might be, it's great to see that people are heeding these evacuation orders. So we'll have more updates coming up here, and you can find America's Weather streaming channel as well. I'll be updating there as well. So keep abreast to the forecast, check on your friends and family down there, and everybody stay safe.